Hi, now let's talk about supplier functional interface. Supplier is used for constructing an object from nothing by a constructor or a builder or in some other ways. We have no input, but we have an output. A functional interface has only one method. It is get, and it has no input argument but returns an object of type T. Let's say we have a supplier, a calendar supplier. We may basically get an instance statically from the calendar class inside the get method of our supplier. Then we may get a calendar instance by just invoking the get method. Our other functional interface is consumer. Consumer, as its name implies, gets an object and consumes it. So as a result, we have no output. One single input argument and we have no output. Because consumers has side effects. They may change the attributes of input argument even if this is contrary to the philosophy of functional programming, and it may write some output to some file or console or any other streams. So consumer is somehow contrary to philosophy of functional programming, but has some specific goals to mutate the data in the input argument or for some side effects such as writing some data to console. A consumer interface have two methods. The first method is the execution method, which is accept, and it returns void because it only consumes the data, which is type of T. And we may compose the consumers by and then method. So we may chain any other consumer to a consumer. Both of them may use the same input argument, and with some side effects they don't create any output. So let me show you an example. Let's say we have a consumer of date class, and this date class simply gets the date and finds the next day's date. So it increments the date by 1 day and returns no output. Okay, we will use this consumer only for incrementing the date by 1 day. And here we have another consumer. Let's say we refer it by day printer name, and this consumer will simply write the date, which is the input, with this format: day, month, year, and the name of the day. Okay, and since it is a consumer again, it does not return an output. It only creates some side effect. This println statement is a side effect. And then we may chain these consumers with and then method. So this simply does that. This consumer calculates the tomorrow's date, and this consumer prints the date with this format, and we chained with and then. The trick is that since this consumer does not create an output, this consumer and this consumer consuming the same object, so this will not use the result of this object. We are just using the same instance inside two different consumers. They will not be affected by each other's modifications. Let me demonstrate it. Here we have developed the two consumers. The first consumer is consuming a date instance, and inside the accept method we are creating a calendar with get instance, and then we are setting the time with the given date, and then we are incrementing the date by 1 day, and then we are printing out the date. Tomorrow is something. Okay, and the second consumer is day printer, and it again consumes a date instance. Inside the accept method we are creating a simple date format with this pattern, and then we are outputting the date with this pattern. Now let me use them independently. One day increment accept new date. Okay, run as Java application. Today is 21st August, so the result is 22nd August. Okay, now let me use the day printer consumer accept again new date. This will print out 21st August with this format. So 21st August and the name of the day, this pattern. Now let me comment out this and let's chain these two consumers. Their outputs will not be affected each other. They will use the same given input argument and they are consuming the copy of the original input argument. Okay, that's why the first one will print out tomorrow's date and this consumer will print out again today's date, not tomorrow's. So one day increment dot accept new date. This is our single usage. Between them I need to consume the clone, the copy of the original date object by the day printer. So I'm chaining the consumers, run as Java application. You see the first one is 22nd, so tomorrow's date here, and the other one is prints out today's date with this pattern. So the results, the modifications of these two objects is not affected each other. As you can see, for using functional interfaces, each time we are creating an anonymous inner type, and this is somehow an ugly usage of these functional interfaces. Each functional interface may be written by a very short expression, I mean the lambda expressions, and a lambda expression may replace any functional interface, a supplier, a predicate, or any other function instance, so that we don't need to write anonymous inner types. In the next video, we will talk about lambda expressions.